So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This conversation is part of our Better Satellite World campaign, which is focused on a simple and yet powerful idea that space and satellite technologies don't exist for their own sake. Rather, they exist because they shape our world, how people connect, how crises are managed, how safety is protected, and how opportunity is created. Today's roundtable brings together three organizations that were recognized with Better Satellite World Awards, not just for technical achievement, but for work that demonstrates real world impact and responsibility. This conversation is recorded live, but we will also be releasing this on SSPI video. And so I'm very grateful with that to welcome three amazing leaders who are representing the organizations that won the award. Let's say we'll start with Nick Shave. Nick Shave is Managing Director of Astroscale UK. He leads Astroscale's growth and strategy across commercial, government, and technical operations in the UK, strengthening collaboration between Japan, the UK, and global partners to advance space sustainability and on-orbit servicing. Alvaro Sanchez is here with us. We had him on the podcast just today, and he is the Chief Executive Officer of INTEGRASYS, a software and industrial engineer and the Marquis of Antello. I'm going to learn how to say it. I'm going to figure out how to say it, Alvaro. He's also a 20 under 25 recipient from 2022. And under his leadership, INTEGRASYS has pioneered advanced technologies that strengthen global communications, resilience, in some of the most demanding environments. And then we have Dr. Jennifer Stone, a Chief Strategy Officer and Head of Spectrum Strategy and International Coordination at River Advisors. In addition to leading global spectrum strategy, she oversees River Advisors scholarship programs for Isle of Man students, reflecting the company's long-term commitment to building the next generation of space and satellite leaders. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Jennifer is herself one of those scholarship recipients from years ago. And so with all of that, welcome to all of you. Congratulations again on your honor of being Better Satellite World awardees. And how did I do? Did I introduce you all well? And anybody want to jump and say, no, you didn't quite get that right? Did I do okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Tamara.
Awesome. I'm so happy to hear that.
Thank you, Tamara.
Okay. Well, let me just do some kind of really grounding. You guys won these awards, and each of the awards that was recognized was really a little bit different. So why don't we take turns? I'd like each one of you to kind of tell us a little bit about what your organization was recognized for, and why you think it mattered to the world. What stood out to you as being significant to that achievement of winning this award? Let's keep it short so that we can go on to other questions. But I'd like to hear from you all, your own words of what you think you've won, because we think you won something. So how about we start with? I'll start with Alvaro.
Well, for us, it was a great pleasure. It was for a technology that we developed that is called Clean RF. So many times, some government or some country decides that they shouldn't have the power to communicate, or somebody else shouldn't have the power to see, to hear. And they create electronic warfare weapons that deny communications into a nation or into an adversary. And in that regard, we created that technology that eliminates interference from adjacent channels, interference from unwanted signals. And we have deployed that both in NATO, in Ukraine, and in many other regions of the world, providing an excellent effect of being able to communicate, whether it's satellite communications, whether it is radio communications or GPS navigation systems. And for the team is extremely proud of, as well as I am. And I'm extremely proud of the team to develop and support, because many times it's not only the technology, but also the support aspect of supporting someone far away with special needs, with the special threats that are coming very dynamically, and that's we are very proud of. So again, thank you, SSPI.
Thank you so much for that, Jennifer.
Thank you, Tamara. So we were delighted to be honoured by the SSPI for our educational efforts. So River Advisors is an Isle of Man headquartered company, and so it's been very important to us from day one, really, to give back and provide opportunities to students on the Isle of Man and show them that a career in space is a possibility for them. It's a very small place, and so sometimes coming from a small place like the Isle of Man, you might think that a job in the space industry, a career, is maybe out of reach, not something that's possible. And so through this program, we want to show our students that this is very much a possibility for them, something they can absolutely achieve. And so the variety of programs we provide, our flagship is sending students to a 2-week program in Houston every summer. The premise of that program is to plan a crewed mission to Mars, working with students from over 20 different countries, learning about each other's cultures, being exposed to scientists, engineers, professionals, astronauts, and then coming together with all different people to work on that. We also work closely with the Isle of Man schools on STEM career events, workshops. We work closely with the teachers to support the curriculum. And so last year, we actually reached over 2,000 students on the Isle of Man. And so it's a real thrill for us to receive this award. It's such a rewarding program for us. We really think it makes a difference. It's good for business. So thank you very much, SSPI.
Thank you, Jennifer. Nick?
Thanks, Tamara. Yeah, wow. 2 incredible awardees. We're really pleased to be in this group today for such great technologies and educational aspects. So Astroscale, and it was actually my boss, the CEO, Nobu, who was recognised, but unfortunately he couldn't make it to the event to receive the award. So I was honoured to receive it on behalf of him. But it was a whole company award, and it was for the ADRAS-J mission, which is a mission we launched in 2004. The spacecraft was built in Japan, and the UK part of the company that I lead was deeply involved in the mission, building the ground segment and leading all the flight dynamics, which is part of the key aspect of what we were trying to achieve on this mission. It really was a world first, because it was the first mission that got within 20 meters of a very large debris object in orbit, a 3.5-ton rocket body. So the unique thing we did there was prove the rendezvous proximity operations, which is a really tough thing to do in orbit, with all the perturbations between different objects and lots of different things that can go wrong. There's a lot of autonomy that's needed the closer you get to objects. So there's no people in the loop, for example. So a lot of software, a lot of computer vision, machine learning type techniques are used in that process. And what this will enable in the future is the in-orbit servicing economy that's coming, and how we extend the lives of satellites, how we repair them in the future, and how we remove them at the end. It's really one of the last vestiges of humanity that doesn't have that final part of the overall chain of events. You launch, you build, you launch, you leave, and at the moment it just gets left in orbit. So we need to find a way of making space more sustainable, and this technology that we've proven on ADRAS-J is a step towards that.
Yeah.
So really pleased to receive the award. Thank you, SSPI.
Well, thank you all. And likewise, I'm probably the corniest person on the planet, but whenever we have an opportunity to give out awards, I'm always so excited. I'm just like, wow, just look at what we have accomplished as an industry. It's always quite amazing to me. But I wonder if that is because I'm inside the industry, right? I will be here 25 years come March, which is stunning to me. I'm like, how is that even a thing? But okay, that means I know a little bit about the industry. There's a lot of people who have zero understanding of our industry. So what do you tell them about why what you do matters? And Nick, I want to start with you because I think that question is easier maybe for Alvaro and for Jennifer, but it might be harder for you. How do you explain your work to people who know nothing about space and satellite?
Well, we often start off. It's a really good question, and how you connect, the people from the sort of general public into what we're doing specifically, or space in general. Mm-hmm. I think the first thing we always try to explain is the criticality of space to everyday life now. It's increasingly integrated. It is increasingly integrated into so many different systems. When you check the weather on your phone, that at least 70% of the data from that is coming from space. If you're using GPS, when you're receiving a delivery or whichever one you just decide to get your takeaway deliveries by, it's using GPS. So, and there's many other things as well. It's so critical, as Alvaro was saying, in the defense world and providing security for all of our troops around the world, and so there's so many angles there that we are more and more dependent, and it will become more and more integrated as we get into sort of 7G and the sort of transition between satellite and terrestrial comms becomes more merged, let's say. Mm-hmm. So protecting the space environment, given the massive increase in satellites that have been launched with constellations like Starlink and others like Kuiper coming, other Chinese constellations that are coming, OneWeb. There's such a large number of satellites. It's almost exponential growth now in orbit. So we've got to find a way of enabling the space environment to continue to provide the services to humanity that we need. So that's where we are. If we don't, we won't be able to use certain orbits, and it will be dangerous for life in orbit as well as we start to go out, as Jennifer was saying about going on to Mars. What about living in space? And more of that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yes.
What I would say is that we typically hire a lot of young talent, and many times we need to encourage them to work in the space industry besides many other industries. And we say if Richard Branson, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos invest on it, it needs to have something. So how have you been coming to the interview or to work with GPS? How you communicate with other countries, many times through satellite, how you visualize the world, many times is with satellite images. So in that regard, it helps you to do your job better. It helps you to live your life much greater, and we need to be better at advertising how satellite helps that. SSPI helps much into that with the introductory videos that are showing the population how satellite helps. But also this new space needs to help as well. So making sure that is considered an industry and is not considered only a person or an individual. So in that regard, that's how the industry can help, because somebody else did before and somebody else do also adjacent. So I would encourage that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's where our we're trying to start them young on the Isle of Man, certainly. And so through engaging with the students, their teachers, and they're going to their parents, and so this is a way to increase the engagement and the knowledge. And we do still encounter, when we go into schools, maybe people don't actually know what a satellite is, perhaps.
Wow.
or they're very, very knowledgeable. And so a recent STEM career event, we ran a little satellite tracking demo. So you could select, sort of look at different orbits and how many of these are Starlink satellites, for example. And so I think this also helped to show the space sustainability problem. And in our competition, to choose our students to travel to Houston, we ask them various sort of space topics. And so one of the questions we ask is about their ideas for improving sustainability. And so some of our students have name checked your company, Nick, I'm pleased to say. So yeah, we're doing our bit to improve awareness.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking, Alvaro, you were reflecting on people's awareness of the industry and its value, broadly speaking. One of the things that, that was so significant about the clean RF technology is the places where people are very aware, right? Like there are places in the world where satellite is so critical. And I talk about lack of awareness, but I talk about it from a place of privilege, right? I'm in the United States. I'm in New York. I very rarely touch satellite unless it's my GPS, right? Because I have extensive internet connectivity, fiber optic, and all the things. But there are places in the world where satellite is it, and people are very aware of it, and so I first of all, I have to just pause and just acknowledge that the framing that we don't know is actually very, very U.S. centric, maybe, or first world centric, or I don't know. I don't know what the right word is, but there's places where that's just not true. But then when you think about conflict areas, and the ability to be accessible there, how do you maintain a degree? How do you think about the industry in terms of not choosing sides? Like, or do you think that about that? Do you feel like the industry needs to be accessible, or can just not have anybody lock anybody out? How do we think this through?
So I think that the industry needs to be accessible. There is a percentage of the products that might be more controlled, but accessible as an industry per se. I remember that we have done hundreds of digital divide projects in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia Pacific, where schools, e-health, and different applications for e-learning were deployed thanks to VSATs. So VSATs now have reduced the number of new deployments, as Starlink has disrupted that market much. But Starlink is another new space way to access those particular markets. And subsidies from the government help, and that's a good way to see that. Also, for example, it was open in Iran as well as Venezuela now with some let's say, enablement of the service, although in Iran has been completely jammed. So how a country can actually deny the access to their citizens. So that's, it's a little challenging on where to sell and where not to sell particular let's say, military-grade solutions, but the commercial solutions should be available for everybody because everybody can benefit. And tomorrow, as Nate mentioned, a direct-to-device or new type of services, it's going to be even more relevant. It's going to be creating new challenges, but also new opportunities in order to connect the other 3 billion or the unconnected.
Yeah, yeah. Nick, when you're thinking about space sustainability, are you thinking about this idea of a level playing field? And are people adopting the idea of space sustainability in a way that it's more global as opposed to, localized interest?
It's a really good question, and it's quite a big issue in this area for space sustainability. I mean, it comes back to the basic way that space is regulated within each nation. So at the moment, it's a national regulator that gives approval for use of certain spectrum, whether for telecoms or Earth observation or scientific missions or whatever the application is. And then obviously that's coordinated through the ITU. So space sustainability aspects of this, you could argue it's quite a parallel. It's a similar thing to achieve because it does. I've heard the space debris problem be quoted as a tragedy of the commons, a bit like plastics in the ocean. It's all of us that are going to be impacted. Every nation on Earth eventually. Certainly, the advanced nations, if you want to call it that, call them those that may be impacted initially. But so we need to bring the space sustainability aspects more in line with the way that spectrum is managed for frequency spectrum is managed for telecoms, and the UN through UNOSA, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, is trying to coordinate. However, it's not an easy job at the moment. So I think over the next 10 to 20 years, we'll see some convergence, it's my prediction, towards more of a common view rather than the independent nations regulating, but we'll see.
Yeah. So this is a nice segue. Jennifer, I have two questions. First of all, River Advisors as a company doing filings and enabling satellite access, but also the young people that you're encouraging into the industry. How are you getting people to think about this future that we're developing? Because obviously we love that people are very excited about, or that you're doing the good work of getting young people excited about our industry. And yet the very industry that we're getting excited about is threatened.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So I think the first part is excitement, for sure. And also showing that it's something these students can do themselves. And so it's a mixture of visiting schools, telling them about certain topics, answering questions. We organize astronaut visits. So putting real people who are working on these very topics in front of them, and so that they can ask questions. It's listening to their ideas as well, and really listening and taking them seriously. And this is something I think that the program in Houston that we send our students to does very well. So I think, excitement, enthusiasm, and then showing them what's out there and how they can get involved to tackle these challenges.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most hopeful thing, right? Is that if we get young people thinking about these things early, they're going to have ideas that we don't, right? Because they're young and they're thinking about the world. And, so that is super exciting. I wonder if if the three of you would react to this idea of, well, answer the question, what is an assumption that we have in our industry that maybe we should challenge, right? And like the one that I just put forward. I say so casually, well, people don't know. And I'm like, actually, that's not true. Lots of people who are deeply dependent are very aware of our industry and its needs. So what are some of the assumptions we have as an industry that we're not challenging enough yet? Or what? Yeah, over to you. I'm not going to qualify that any further.
I think that industries is slow. So we must take time in order to accomplish certain things. Yes, we need to take time, but I think that as an industry, we need to accelerate and do
Mm,
uh, evolve faster, iterate more, and accomplish more. Most probably, you would experience as I experienced. The world is moving so fast this last few years that you cannot not keep up because things are
mm-hmm,
happening all the time and it's always on the rush. So we are
mm-hmm,
managing to do many other things very fast, but we need to make space things and defense things and critical things faster by
mm-hmm,
iterating more with the user or by hiring more people or by enabling certain technologies. But we must adopt to a new world because one of my colleagues was telling me this is the January most busy I have ever had, but the last December was the same, and the last September was the same. So in that regard, it is not going away. It is
yeah.
actually getting even more and more busy. So it's ridiculous, but we must find ways to navigate through that evolution and acceleration that the world is having, but the industry needs to follow because if
Mm-hmm,
we don't follow, then we don't exist. So we need to enhance and find new ways to enable space as well as find new applications that space can serve. So this way we can have relevant solutions that can be relevant and can help the world.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I think Alvaro, you've really hit the nail on the head there. One other point I would say is I think we're going to see a bit of a merging between, to a degree, between the sort of civil commercial world and more the defense military world of space.
mm,
I think we're going to see more. We're starting to see it with, Starlink as an example, and other commercially built networks that are hosting, applications for defense purposes. And as space becomes more of a domain in the military sense, a bit like cyber was 10, 20 years ago, then that is unfortunately going to make it going to require more protection of that technology in orbit and in the ground systems and everything else. Sorry, I don't mean to put a negative spin on this, but I think it's something we need to address. And I'm not sure we're really fully grasping this at the moment as an industry.
mm. Jennifer, I want you to react, but I want to come back to what Nick just said because I have a question.
Yeah, so maybe sort of along the themes that Alvaro and Nick have already shared, in terms of moving faster, accelerating, also maybe challenging the sort of current norms, or this works fairly well, or it's good enough, and so we'll stick to the way. So, I mean, obviously, regulation is challenging. You don't want to choose the winners, but you need to enable these new exciting technologies, and then challenging these international frameworks, or even setting up a framework in the first place, obviously is challenging, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. The very scary thing that you just described, Nick, is the like you said, the merger, and it's happening now in real time, right? The constant blurring of the line between commercial and military, right? And even with the development now, the push for European sovereignty, that comes in a geopolitical reality, right? That there was an understanding of the world geopolitically. It's changing, and with that change, European powers are saying, we need to be able to be sure we have our own capability, right? So, and that can't but help proliferate. And of course, we talk about that universe casually, but then we don't, that's Europe and America. Then there's Russia, there's China, there's all these different powers that are space powers that have a stake. Does that add or subtract to the idea of the commons? The fact that this becomes a military theater, does it add to it or attract to the idea of the commons, or does it clutter the issue?
Big subject. Yeah, I think you can probably think back, what happened 400 years ago, 500 years ago in the maritime domain, and then 100 years ago in the air domain. And as I said, that's sort of starting to happen in the space domain. It does feel a long way away, but as we've been discussing, it's also connected to our daily lives. So, yeah, we need to. As an industry, as industry players, we need to continue to look to governments, I would argue, to help regulate in the right way, and try to, maybe through the UN or other bodies to ensure that it is a level playing field as best as possible. But it's hard when it becomes. The domain becomes more of a military domain. Mm-hmm. So sorry, it's not a very good answer, but just sort of thinking through the issue.
Yeah.
I kind of bring up the point. Looking at the space awareness or traffic in space, it's much larger than planes. It's you don't see 15,000 planes flying over the world daily. So, and see that in space quite dramatically. So the intelligence and the dynamism that space have is not less but more every day. So we have worked very, very hard into tracking objects. And a little word from NASA to track Artemis Orion that we are very proud of. And it's critically important to track very accurate, because there is uncertainty as things move in distance from Earth. So the better we can track, the more physical security we can have. Also, the better characterization of different type of things that those nearby elements can do for other applications, the better it is. Also, a space law is being developed in Luxembourg, in Spain, and contributing by different other countries, and that's critical too, to use space wisely. And the regulation from ITU, but constellations when they do the filing, they promise. But also, it's very important to make sure that they execute their promise and they don't interfere somebody else, and they do not do something else. So that monitoring of those assets and those frequencies is mandatory. That now the numbers have bombed completely. So from few satellites to few thousand satellites, and you see filings that they might fool completely the orbit. So it's curious how it's becoming, and also the orbital planes as well as the frequencies are becoming a very strategic assets to have for different nations. So when you accumulate all that, it becomes okay. I might not use, but somebody else will not use. So it's a little bit curious how things are progressing. But again, it's very interesting times.
Mhm. Hmm. Let me ask this question. I'm going to lighten the mood just a little bit. I think we'll see. Who is watching Star Trek Starfleet Academy that just started? Anybody?
Very
No,
not. Right. I used to
what?
love Star Trek many years ago, but not recently.
Okay, well, let me give you the setup. Just kind of tackling the topic and let me know what you think. So the setup is that, okay, Star Trek the Star Trek universe, there was some catastrophic event, and this beautiful thing that so many of us grew up with, thinking about the United Federation of Planets, basically fell apart. And so it became more militaristic. And so now we're post that moment in history. They're trying to rebuild the federated planets, and they've launched for the first time again after thousands of years the Starfleet Academy. It's very nice. But interestingly, right next door, like part of the same building, is the War College. So now Starfleet has a war college and the Starfleet people who are like the explorers, but they're in the same universe. They're and what I thought about this when I saw this, I was like, well, we'll see how this. It's a brand new show. It started like last week or something, and so I'm a Trekkie, so I was like all over it. But what it made me think about is just the idea that we hold in our understanding at the same time, like in the same space, that there is a military idea that has to be considered, and there is a common idea that has to be considered, and that those two things should be together. They shouldn't be separate, because that way we can negotiate them together. Jennifer, what's your thinking on this?
Oh, I thought you said you were going to lighten the mood. Yeah, I mean, I think that in a way that's a necessity. I mean, obviously the radio regulations tell us that spectrum and orbits are a finite natural resource we have to share. So many applications have to share. There's certainly physics dictating what is shared and used by what services. But yeah, I suppose we do need this coexistence, and if there can be transparency between all parties so that we can share. I mean, a technological solution, like a technical discussion between engineers working out power levels and a coordination meeting, that's a great way to do it, but appreciating that there are topics beyond that need to be considered. And this is something that we like to emphasize to our students, like a space career. It takes all kinds of talent. So just because you're not maybe maths and engineering, there's plenty for the economists, the political scientists, the diplomats, the linguists, plenty of negotiation skills to be had. So certainly, we need to share ultimately, I think, and yeah, figuring out the best way to do that is the tricky part.
Yeah. Anybody else? What are we thinking? Nick, are you feeling more hopeful with that idea in mind?
After Alvaro.
Okay, no, sorry.
Sharing makes a lot of synergy, so you save and you can reutilize. Also brings challenges because it is not the same solution that a grandmother in her home needs for connecting with grandsons than what a military might need deployed. So there would be some sort of glue or connection, but there might be some wall of separation too, in order to make sure that when grandma is calling or texting his grandson, it doesn't appear in the military phone. Yes, it needs to be a little bit of a war.
We found him.
Yes. So we need to have proximity, but not too much. So a little bit of a wall into between the two buildings, and also many times there is talent that says one industry that can move to the other, or the other way around, because the skill sets are similar. Just you
right.
need to make sure that the way to manage the information and the security aspects needs to be completely trained in the military, or maybe forgotten in the industry when they are back. So yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Okay. Grandma can't get in the middle of the military conversation. Thank you. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks. Yeah, trying to take a positive perspective as well. In previous, you can look back in time. The period that the Outer Space Treaty was negotiated in the 60s. It was the Apollo era and the space race with Russia and the US both trying to get to the moon after President Kennedy's amazing speech. We did achieve it then. We got the Outer Space Treaty, and everyone came together and realized that it was a finite resource. Although space is big, right? But our orbits are finite. That's one way I think we should think about it. And I hope that the UN or whatever body can come forward and make sure we have the fora to achieve what we need in terms of, first of all, international agreements, and then the regulation that comes from that. So, yeah, I think given the acceleration of space and the fact that it is both strategic and economically important to so many countries around the world, then yeah, I'm positive that we'll get there.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I have to ask this question, and this is only for Alvaro, because I know that Jennifer and Nick say this the same way. Alvaro, in Spain, do they say maths or do they say math? What do they say?
Math or math? I don't know. It sounds the same to me.
Because you speak Spanish.
Wait, I'm so sorry. I haven't understood.
Yeah, decided to get it. Okay, yeah. Jennifer said, "Oh, you don't have to just do maths," and I said, "Right, UK. They say maths."
It would be in English. It would be maths, but in Spanish would be matemáticas.
So you go.
Yeah.
That sounds like a plural to me.
Yeah, I heard the S. I heard the S in there. Okay. Well, to all of you, I want to thank you all so much for being here and for sharing your thoughts. And I want to congratulate you once again on the achievement. I have one last question, and you guys can answer it however you see fit. Does this award matter, right? Or should we think about this award another way? This is the Better Satellite World Award. We started this, I think, in 2015, I think is when we started. So it's already 10 years old. And we set forth to say we want to honor companies that are doing good in the world by use of our satellites, by use of our technology, right? And so is that the right frame? Is there a better frame for going forward where we are today with the dramatic change in our industry, or anything that you guys would like to think about going forward in terms of what we should recognize as an industry?
We really liked it. We tried multiple years to win it. Finally, we won. But many times when I explain the award, I say this is not a technology award. This is an award to use the technology to make a better world. So it's not about doing good things. It's about doing it well. So I think as a recognition is different than many other awards, and it matters a lot, in my opinion. But leaving the floor to Jennifer and Nick.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it provides great encouragement, and I mean, our education program is something we love doing. We don't do it for the awards, but it is nice to receive this. And I mean, we've definitely seen our students that have gone through these programs. They're going into careers now in space and satellite and other industries too. But then they're in turn mentoring the next generation and giving back. So it hopefully drives a sort of snowball effect and improves the awareness of the great work that the satellite industry does.
Yeah, I'd fully agree with Alvaro and Jennifer there on what they said. I also think it's important for us because this is an award that's recognised by the industry itself, of other industry players, and we enjoy working in the industry where we partner with many companies, and that's so critical. We all need to work together as much as we can. So to get recognition from other industry partners is very, very welcome. And as I said earlier, it's a great honor.
Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of today and off to wonderful and great and better satellite world things in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you, Tamara.
All right. And with that, what's come through clearly in this conversation is that a better satellite world isn't just about better technology. It's about better choices, better stewardship, and better alignment with the responsibility that we have with this great industry that we share. For those watching on SSPI video, these conversations are part of our broader Better Satellite World campaign, which is focused, as we discussed, on how space and satellite technologies shape real lives, real systems, and real outcomes across the globe. Nick, Alvaro, and Jennifer, thank you so much for the work you have done and continue to do. And thank you for taking time to share with us why it matters. And once again, congratulations. Have a great rest of today.